Well, certainly the key foreign policy part of that speech, Rosemary, was his reference to Afghanistan. Remarkable often how little time President Obama likes to speak about what has been America's longest war, now stretching almost into its 12th year, making it quite clear that the force there would halve in size. The American residual force there down to 32,000 in February. Some more details given to the media around then, suggesting that, in fact, the bulk of the 66,000 American troops currently in Afghanistan would remain there roughly until November. That gives them all of this summer's forthcoming fighting season to try and assist Afghan security forces in a very difficult task in keeping a resurgent Taliban on their back foot. And then suddenly over that winter you'll see a drop down of about 20,000 to that 32,000 figure that Mr. Obama mentioned during his speech. But so many challenges ahead in Afghanistan, but the public in the United States so weary of this war and its cost that certainly announcements like that come remarkably briefly from the president but begin to suggest the war is effectively over. Rosemary?
Yeah, Nick, it's certainly what people back in the United States want to hear, but what do you think is going to be the likely reaction in Afghanistan, the realisation of basically a sense of abandonment at that point?
Well, certainly the Afghans have known for years this was coming, and it was kind of clear, I think, when Barack Obama suggested the turn down of the surge, that this rush to the exits would eventually be upon them. This is slightly slower than had previously been thought. As I said, it leaves a force there of a higher number than many had anticipated, and in fact, the force that will be there in the start of 2014, when America's long advertised it would be pulling out and ending its war there, is larger than many had particularly thought there could be. The talk is of potentially 9,000, no more, certainly, residual American force if the Afghan government agrees. But Afghans themselves, I think it's fair to say, are kind of torn on this. Many of them fear what will happen once international forces depart and the Taliban perhaps gets a stronger footing in the country, perhaps even ends up in some sort of political accommodation with the Karzai government, or what actually ends up replacing it after April and its elections. But the real question for many of them too is, was the international forces' presence there and was the existence of that large military campaign in fact a lightning rod for greater violence? Might they see their lives perhaps get more peaceful with the withdrawal of international forces, or do they have to endure a compromise of a decline for their own human rights, a decline for the rights of women in Afghanistan? And many really were asking in these months ahead exactly what the net impact, the long-term impact on Afghan society, this enormously expensive, over a decade, Western enterprise has been.